This is one of those questions that sounds almost too obvious to ask until you actually start digging into the specifics. And then it turns into one of the most genuinely fascinating rabbit holes in ancient human behavior and survival. Picture this: a small group of prehistoric hunters creeping through a dense forest, their handcrafted spears clutched tightly as they track the subtle signs of prey, a broken twig, a fresh hoofprint. Hours later, they return to their camp, empty-handed. Yet crucially, this wasn't a rare occurrence. For early humans, coming back without a catch was almost routine. So the question is, how did approximately 80% of ancient hunters return with nothing? And why did this happen so consistently across different societies and environments throughout our history? Let's actually dig into this by first understanding something called the prey scarcity phenomenon, a term anthropologists often refer to as an ecological limitation. Essentially, it's the idea that in many ecosystems, especially those dominated by large predators, prey animals are not as abundant as one might expect or hope. According to studies, even in the most biodiverse habitats, the density of huntable large game is often less than one animal per square kilometer, severely limiting the opportunities for a successful hunt. Take, for example, the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies today. In their environment, only about 5% of their hunting excursions result in a successful large kill. Think about it. 5 hunts, 1 success. To put it into perspective, this means that for every 20 hunting trips, only 1 yields a substantial food resource. Another illustrative case is the Inuit, who hunt seals and caribou in the Arctic. They too often face long periods without a successful catch, primarily because these animals are not only sparse, but also incredibly alert and well adapted to their harsh environments. The Inuit hunters have to contend with the fact that caribou herds may migrate over 1,200 kilometers annually, making their movements difficult to predict. This sounds like it completely contradicts everything we've just said about scarcity being a limiting factor, especially when you consider rich environments like the Serengeti. But even there, high prey visibility doesn't guarantee an easy hunt. Studies show that the mere presence of animals doesn't mean a higher success rate for human hunters, due to competition with highly efficient predators like lions and leopards, which can take down prey at astonishing speeds, utilizing stealth and pack tactics. So scarcity isn't just about numbers, it's about access and competition, which reshapes our understanding of why hunters frequently return empty-handed. Understanding this, we can see how the prey scarcity phenomenon ties directly into the broader question of human hunting success. But how did ancient hunters perceive the environment around them? And what does this perception tell us about their strategies? Now, here's an interesting angle: cognitive bias in hunter decision-making, also known scientifically as heuristics in resource tracking. This concept suggests that ancient hunters, like modern humans, relied on mental shortcuts to make fast decisions in uncertain environments. This cognitive bias often involved a trade-off between speed and accuracy to maximize immediate chances of success in a highly dynamic setting. For example, research on the San people of the Kalahari Desert reveals that they use specific signs, like tracks and droppings, as indicators of recent animal presence. These signs increase perceived probability, even if statistically the odds are still slim. In their environment, where water and animal resources are particularly scarce, relying on such cues becomes a survival mechanism. Similarly, the Yanomami tribes in the Amazon rely on subtle changes in forest sounds to infer the presence of game, often giving them an edge in dense environments where visual cues are minimal. But here's the wild part: sometimes these biases lead hunters astray. The over-reliance on specific signals can create a false sense of optimism, where hunts are pursued based on merely suggestive, not definitive, evidence. This challenges the notion of the hunter as a highly accurate tracker, and instead paints a picture of one navigating a landscape of chance and uncertainty, where the margin for error is narrow and the consequences of failure can be severe. In this way, cognitive biases in decision-making help us understand the deeper psychological layers influencing hunting outcomes. So, the next logical question is, what were the strategies ancient hunters used to manage and mitigate these repeated failures? This brings us to a fascinating concept called hunting risk management, a strategic approach sometimes referred to as foraging diversification. This method involves hedging bets by pursuing varied types of game and simultaneously gathering non-meat resources to ensure survival. Over thousands of years, this approach has been essential in maintaining the delicate balance between risk and resource acquisition. Consider the Chumash people of North America, whose diet incorporated not just hunted marine mammals, but also gathered acorns and seeds, creating a balanced food source. The acorn in particular was a staple due to its high caloric content, providing an estimated 2,000 calories per kilogram. Another case involves the Aboriginal Australians, whose hunting strategies include targeting both large game like kangaroos and smaller animals like lizards, while also utilizing plant resources. This varied diet not only buffered against the unpredictability of hunting, but also ensured nutritional diversity critical for health. However, this diversification isn't foolproof. There's evidence suggesting that during periods of extreme climatic stress, such as prolonged droughts or unseasonal frosts, the availability of both plant and animal resources can become critically low, forcing groups to depend heavily on social networks or trade with neighboring tribes for survival. These trading networks could extend over hundreds of kilometers, necessitating complex social diplomacy. This shows that while diversification can mitigate risk, it doesn't eliminate it, which highlights the precarious balance prehistoric peoples had to maintain. By exploring these strategies, we get a clearer sense of how risk management connected to their broader survival tactics. So, how did these ancient hunters communicate and pass these strategies down through generations to refine their efforts? We delve into cultural transmission of hunting knowledge, a process sometimes called social learning in foraging contexts. This is about how knowledge, skills, and techniques were shared and developed over time, ensuring that valuable insights weren't lost, but instead refined with each generation. In communities like the Kung San, young boys accompany their fathers on hunts from as early as 8 years old, gradually learning through observation and practice. This hands-on apprenticeship model ensures real-time feedback and adaptation to real-world variables. Similarly, studies on the Ha people of Paraguay show that storytelling and shared experiences play a critical role in educating younger hunters, further enhancing their understanding of animal behavior and tracking skills. These stories aren't just tales of past exploits, but are rich with practical advice and encoded wisdom. Yet there's an intriguing twist. In some cultures, ritual and myth are so deeply intertwined with hunting practices that they blur practical teaching with spiritual lore. This can sometimes lead to superstitions that prioritize ritual over technique, which, while culturally rich, might not always enhance practical hunting efficiency. In some cases, rituals could consume valuable time and resources that might otherwise be directed towards more pragmatic activities. Nevertheless, these rituals often serve as cohesive forces within the group, reinforcing community bonds and shared identity, and ensuring that cultural values are upheld. These insights into cultural transmission illuminate how hunting practices were preserved and adapted through time, integrating the practical with the cultural. But how did technological innovations factor into the success rates of these ancient hunts? Let's explore technological adaptation in hunting, sometimes academically termed tool evolution in subsistence strategies. Here, the evolution of tools wasn't just about creating efficiencies, but transforming the very nature of human interaction with the environment. The development of tools significantly changed hunting dynamics. For example, the invention of the atlatl, or spear thrower, which dates back to around 30,000 years ago, allowed hunters to throw spears with greater force and accuracy. Analysis of atlatl throw ranges suggests they could increase the effective distance of a spear by over 100%, drastically improving safety and success in open hunts. This technological leap increased the success rates of hunts where precision was crucial. Another example is the variety of traps used by prehistoric peoples, like the pitfall traps used by Neolithic groups in Europe to capture wild boar. These traps were often camouflaged and strategically placed along known animal paths, reflecting an advanced understanding of animal behavior and landscape use. Archaeological evidence indicates that such traps could span up to several meters in length, cleverly hidden with foliage and soil to mask their presence. However, these technological advances sometimes led to overdependence on certain techniques, which could backfire if environmental conditions changed or prey patterns shifted. This necessitates a continual adaptation and innovation cycle, driving home the point that technology, while crucial, is only one piece of a complex survival puzzle. Diversification in technological strategies was essential to adapt to the shifting demands of different ecosystems and prey. And so, by examining how technology influenced hunting strategies, we start to see a fuller picture of the adaptive ingenuity that ancient hunters employed. But how does all this inform our understanding of the broader human narrative? Bringing it full circle, let's return to that scene of ancient hunters returning without a catch. The regularity of these empty-handed returns wasn't just a result of poor luck or lack of skill. It reflects a deeply complex interaction of ecological, psychological, strategic, cultural, and technological factors. Each failed hunt was not merely an absence of food, but a moment of learning, adaptation, and resilience, crucial threads in the tapestry of human evolution. Failure in this context wasn't an endpoint, but a critical component of a learning process that spurred innovation and cultural resilience, ultimately contributing to the development of diverse human societies as we understand them today.